the seaside villages of the Amalfi Coast, the luxury shopping districts of Milan, the Pantheon of Rome, or viewing the artistic work of Da Vinci and Michelangelo, I highly recommend that you look into visiting Italy. And as with any other country, it is vital that if you visit the nation, you keep in mind the cultural values that the individuals in that country adhere to. This is important if you want to adapt to the environment that you're going to be in, and if you want to have beneficial, supportive interactions with any of the locals. And I personally decided that I wanted to research Italy further and discover what values were driving the people in this country, what really was something that they were passionate about, things that they subscribed to, values that they adhere to. And I found that overall Italy is a highly individualistic nation that tends to prioritize masculinity while also having a constraint on any form of societal change or ambiguity. Now, things are not always as simple as they seem, and there is a lot more context in all of these different values. That's really what I wanted to go into today. I really wanted to just kind of discuss the values of the Italian culture. Starting out, Italy has been highly described as a highly individualistic nation where people prioritize personal fulfillment over anything else. Now, the Italian economy is run by a capitalistic system, meaning that there is this number one idea that you are responsible for your own actions, you are responsible for your position in the society, and there's also a lot of value placed on personal rights, including freedom of religion, the right to privacy, the right to own your own property, the right to free speech. And with this in mind, as an American, we know these values ourselves because we live in a highly individualistic nation. So if any of us were really to visit Italy, we would not be extremely surprised by how much they adhere to individualism, because in the US, we are actually more individualistic than they are in Italy. And in fact, in Italy, it has actually been discovered that individualism might be a bad cultural fit for the country's citizens, as it has been linked with neuroticism. On the flip side, the ideology of collectivism has actually been linked with agreeableness, extroversion, and conscientiousness. So there is this contrast and conflict between collectivism and individualism in the country that might not be seen as strongly in the US. There is also this contrast between femininity and masculinity that can be seen in the country. If you follow most forms of US media, you've probably seen some sort of stereotype of Italian men, depicting them as being macho or patriarchal or domineering, and sometimes even violent. Now, these are stereotypes, as I just stated, and stereotypes are not always true. They are simply uninformed guesses as to how a group of individuals will all behave. And research actually indicates that Italian men are not as masculine or traditionally masculine as they are portrayed to be in media. A study done comparing male university students in Italy versus America found that American men were actually more likely to adhere to these traditional masculine norms. They were more likely to believe in the importance of winning and the primacy of work and violence and masculine emotional control than Italian men were. They were also more likely to have a disdain for homosexuality and a belief that men should have power over women than Italian men were. The only category in which Italian men were more masculine than American men was in the Playboy norm, meaning that they are more likely to have multiple romantic partners and more likely to act on any form of sexual desire that they possess. Now, once again, this shows that we cannot rely on simply stereotypes, because unlike what we were constantly being shown in movies like The Godfather or Goodfellas, Italian men are not these domineering, violent figures, and the country does value both masculinity and femininity. Now, there is one factor in which Italians really value tradition, and that is restraint, and the idea that the country does not respond well to change. And this can be seen in a multitude of different factors, including relationships, religion, and immigration. In terms of relationships, it is widely considered that young adults must have the goal of getting married in any form of relationship. And there's often a lot of pressure from family members, community, and neighbors for young adults to be married. And oftentimes, you're not really considered to be settled down if you're not actually in a marriage. Now, this has become sort of conflicting for a lot of young adults that have a different view on what a relationship might be. But once again, the Italian norms are putting up this sort of traditional block against any form of change. This can also be seen in religion because Italy is widely known as being the global center of Catholicism. And this has made it difficult for minority religious groups to really develop an identity in the country and get recognition and be provided equality with the Catholic Church. And oftentimes it is difficult for them to be respected by these more prestigious institutions that prioritize the Catholic Church above them. And lastly, we are seeing immigrants really suffer through this adherence to tradition because a lot of immigrants in Italy today are being seen as a threat by citizens who fear that they might have an impact on the national identity of Italy. They might have an impact on the welfare state. They might have an impact on national security. And with this, it can be seen that through all these different factors, Italians are afraid of change. They're afraid of ambiguity. And with all of this in mind, I hope that visitors might want to consider the way that they behave and the way that they present their own attitudes or views in the country. I do not want to deter anyone from visiting the country, as it is highly, richly diverse.